All right. This meeting is just running through the category direction for CI and specifically highlighting things related to the new pipeline authoring team that are here. For anybody who's not familiar, the direction page just is updated monthly, and it has where we're headed over typically the next 3 or 4 months, but in some ways it'll look out ahead even a year, and in some cases even 3 years. But for the most part, it's like, these are the things that we think are important. These are what's next, and then these are what's coming, on a slightly longer time horizon, but not too far ahead. At the moment, because we just split the teams and we still have one engineering team, and maybe you don't necessarily ever want to have a separate pipeline authoring direction, these are all combined onto one page. It's all because it's all relevant to each other. People in the market don't really think of pipeline editing being one tool and pipeline authoring, or sorry, pipeline operation and interaction being a separate tool. So that's a good reason for keeping these together, but ultimately it will be between you and Tao, Doug, to decide what you want to do here. You're already familiar with direction pages, you've got your own, but so I'll stop with the kind of like explaining what the overall thing is here. Yeah, overall the continuous integration category is all about the running of the pipeline. And one interesting thing about it is a lot of other groups here at GitLab build their features on top of it. So the CD team builds their features on top of the CI pipelines. The Auto DevOps team also builds theirs on top of CI. The testing group builds theirs on top of CI. We have an interesting relationship with the runner team in that we sort of rely on each other, and often we're building features to take advantage. The runner is the execution agent for CI. So anytime a job actually needs to do anything in terms of running programs, then we call out to a runner, we send the job to the runner, and then it runs it, it gives us back the status codes, and then we continue with overall pipeline processing. Yeah, the tool is highly rated in the market. We do really, really well. The most interesting competitor that we have at the moment is Github Actions. They have some good things. They have a lot of attention on it. There's a big user base for GitHub who are interested in trying actions. They've made a nice marketplace that makes it easy to create and share different things. But on the other hand, they will and are already we're starting to hear from customers, they're running into the thing where all of these actions are made by just people in the public, and so you have to build your pipeline out of things that are publicly maintained by somebody who may go away or whatever. So it's kind of like the Jenkins plugin problem all over again. And it will only get worse over time as there's less and less excitement on the actions, and then maintainers will go away, important things will become unmaintained. In the end, what Jenkins did was they basically chose a subset of the most popular issues or plugins and said that these are blessed by us and we will maintain them if nobody else does, and we'll guarantee they're secure and all that stuff. Actions hasn't done that yet, but I suspect they will at some point. But then our products become more similar at that point. It's nicer for us because we take contributions for what would have been plugins or external actions directly into the product. So contributors can just like contribute them directly to GitLab, and they become part of GitLab and then maintained, and basically everything is always supported because it's always inside of GitLab. So that's a nice advantage for us. The other thing is that they have a really distributed model where there's a lot of event passing between jobs, and that can be nice when you're setting up a simple example. It can feel really powerful and nice to use because you just like do magic, right? Like you just tell it about this job, that job passes like everything to another one. It's all wired together via events through a message bus. But when you get to like an enterprise level, or even just kind of like a large project, it becomes really hard to understand what it's going to do because there's a lot of events being passed around that you're not really sure what's going to trigger what, and it's not so declaratively written as a GitLab pipeline. So that's another area where there's a difference, and there's strengths and weaknesses to both sides of the coin, but it's good to be aware of those things. But we are considered a leading tool in the market. We do well in the cloud native CI wave in particular, which was the new one that replaced the CI wave. We were the best solution that wasn't associated directly with a vendor. So that's a good place to be. It's worth checking those reports out as well if you haven't already. What's next and why? So it doesn't look like, so Tao's next thing that she's working on is, or this is Tao's or mine? I can't remember. No, it's actually already delivered in 13.3. So it doesn't look like Tao's done a direction update yet. But this was something that I think she was working on related to keeping the latest artifact in each branch. These three are mine, I believe. So yeah, Vitika and I, we've been working on this one, which is child-parent pipelines is the ability for one pipeline to trigger another. It could be in the same project, it could be in a different project, it could be dynamically generated, it could be checked in. But those pipelines relate to each other, and you need to be able to navigate between the two. The navigation was fairly poor, so we're improving the UX by making that a lot nicer. That's actually live in production as of this morning or yesterday. Dynamic runtime generation with GitLab CI Yaml. So this is about making it even easier to do that. So we released a template using JSON that you can use to generate your GitLab CI YAML at runtime. So one of the modes of child-parent pipelines is that you can dynamically generate the child pipeline YAML at runtime. And what that means is, like, you can say, you know, I want to go check out what changed. I want to go check what different systems are doing. You can literally write a program to do anything and check anything, and then generate what the pipeline is going to do. But we didn't provide any easy way to generate that YAML. It's sort of up to you. It's like, you can do it, but we don't give you any tools. We've released a JSON template. JSON is one templating engine is for JSON and YAML. dhall is another really, really nice one that's getting a lot of traction. I have this assigned to me to do, to figure that out and release it. And yeah, this will just make that easier. YTT is potentially an interesting one, but I don't know if we'll do that or not. There hasn't been too much demand for it, at least compared to JSON and dhall. Allowing child pipelines to trigger their own child pipelines is important for this also. So right now the way it works is a trigger job has to have one, what's the best way to say this? Like when you're implementing a pipeline, all of the trigger jobs have to have a job in the source pipeline. You can have rules to say whether they'll run or not, but you can't dynamically generate a list of triggers. You can't have one job create multiple triggers. There always has to be a one-on-one relationship. So in order to dynamically generate a list of jobs to be triggered, you need to run a pipeline that generates the list of jobs to be triggered and then starts the child pipelines ultimately at the third level. But right now we only support 2 levels, so that's not possible. So if you read this issue, which we're doing in 13.4, you'll see more about why we're doing that in order to allow for that use case. Seamless artifact handling between child-parent pipelines is also important. So because each of these pipelines that we're talking about here are related to, are each independently running pipelines, there's no easy way to kind of roll up all of the artifacts into one place so you can just grab them all. And in fact, there can be conflicts between file names and different artifacts. So we're working on a few issues here to make that easier, to roll them up in a sane way, to bring like the testing reports all up to the parent, so that like if you have a parent pipeline and it starts 10 child pipelines, you don't have to go open up 10 child pipelines in order to find all of the testing results. They'll just be all rolled up into the parent. Yeah, so a lot of focus on child pipeline. The other areas that we're focusing on, we'll come to again when we talk about the longer term vision items, is the DAG, which is the directed acyclic graph mode, where previously the way that pipelines worked is you had several stages. You'd have like the build stage, the test stage, and the deploy stage. And everything would simultaneously start in the build stage. And then when the last thing finished in the build stage, all of the things in the test stage would simultaneously start. And when the last thing finished there, then all the deploys would start, which is fine for simple pipelines, not a big deal. But if you're really trying to get the most efficient pipelines, you may want to say like, well, this test job really only needs the build job that's related to it, and then the deploy job for it can run as soon as the test is run for it. And so you can make sure that things run as quickly as possible by setting up relationships between things. So the DAG is a way to define those relationships within the GitLab CI YAML, and then GitLab will go calculate it all out and run it in the most efficient way possible. And
Jason,
then,
is it like either or? Like you can have like a DAG?
You can mix them. You can have some jobs running in a stage mode. You can have some running in a DAG mode, and it will just run it in the most efficient way possible. They're actually implemented differently in the back end. We have an issue out there to just unify everything to run via the DAG mode, but then have the the default behavior, if you don't specify any relationship, to just run based on the stage. You'll see that issue at some point. It's not super urgent or anything, but it would be nice to clean up tech debt and just have everything work consistently on the back end. And then the other thing that we released recently that we're doing a lot of UX improvements on is the rules keyword, which is used for saying when a job should run or not. It's a replacement to only accept, if you ever used that before. And it's been a complicated thing to get right, and so we're sort of iterating a lot on the documentation, adding templates, and just making it easier to use. The other thing that we need to do there is add more keywords that make it easier to use. Right now there's an if keyword that lets you just kind of like say, like check environment variables, and you can basically do anything by checking environment variables, but there's nicer ways that we could clean up the syntax and just make it a little bit easier to use. So those kinds of things are out there. We can also do a deep dive on any of those topics or anything else related to CI. That's more just like, let's build some pipelines that use these features and do them together. But that's a very high level introduction. Because we're already doing really well in the market. We're an adoption leader for GitLab, and we're rated very highly. We're at the lovable maturity level. P2 issues for the pipeline authoring side are pretty under control. I've got most of them delivered, and the ones that are out there, you got to do like 2 or 3 in every release, but if you do that, you keep up, and it's fine. And other than that, we're doing a ton of UX improvements because the focus is on UX improvement, and also it's just sort of natural for a more mature category. You tend to do more UX improvements than just like building out tons of new capabilities. I talked a little bit about actions a bit. There's more information here. We have this issue for potentially like wrapping GitHub Actions and letting you use them within GitLab CI as a way. I have an issue to work on a migration guide. This issue, making the script section optional, would allow you to build things that are more like actions in GitLab CI. They wouldn't be actions compatible or anything like that, but you'd be able to build containers that are more reusable and more self-driven, where you don't need a script section. Jenkins is a competitor. For the most part, when we hear about Jenkins, people are just like trying to get off of it because they're running into different issues. Typically, it's the plugin issue that I touched on at the beginning, where they've got all these unmaintained plugins. They're not happy with the blast plugins, and they just want to move to something new. The interface is still super dated. I tried it again recently, earlier this year, a few months ago, and I was really surprised to see how old Jenkins still looks. They've never really updated it. They do have Jenkins X, which is the Tecton-based thing, but I haven't seen too much traction for it, at least not yet. As far as other solutions go, the Atlassian has this thing which does okay. Circle CI has is okay as well. One of the nice things that they have is that their jobs start very quickly, and it can feel faster than GitLab CI. So we keep an eye on them. We try to compete with them in terms of making sure that we remain as quick as they are. CodeFresh has interesting things around monitoring that ties more into the CD side of the house. So all of these are interesting to keep an eye on, and GitHub Actions is probably the one that's the biggest competitor. But any one of these any of these other competitors can innovate, and we can learn from what they're delivering. I talked about the analyst already. You have on your onboarding agenda to get in touch with Joyce, who's our analyst coordinator, and she can get you in touch. We can do an introduction. We can start talking about that. The analysts also don't think about these things in terms of like editing pipelines versus running pipelines. So you'll probably always be working with Tao when it comes to like talking to the analyst, preparing for the analyst, rather than having separate conversations. There's some different customer success issues here. We had this Jenkins imported category that we're struggling to find people interested in. But that did come from sales as a top priority. That's on Tao's plate anyway, so she's figuring that out. Filtering pipelines by status is not related to authoring. What is this? This is the ability to run simultaneously an external pipeline and a GitLab pipeline on every commit. Right now, the configuration is such that you choose one or the other. Like either I want to use GitLab CI or I want to use an external CI. We don't have a configuration setting that will just say like run a GitLab pipeline and also go ahead and trigger this other external pipeline as well. But that's on Tao's plate to consider. But that is what that is. The top customer issues is this one that Tao is working on. Actually, looks like it's been delivered now. This is another processing related one. So you can define a after script, which we have before script, we have a script, and we have after script that can all contain a script. After script is meant to run after the script finishes. We don't run it on canceled pipelines. We don't run it on timed out pipelines, but people want the ability to have that happen. So this is adding that. Typically, they would put something like a cleanup in there. Making it possible to control the build status using exit codes is one feature that is in your area for sure. I've got this as a candidate 13.5. And what people want is to say, depending on what the last non-zero exit code was in this script that I've defined here, I want GitLab to treat it as if it was canceled or if it was a warning or if it was success or failed or whatever. And well, failed is the default, but so you could say like, what this would do is give authors more control over how the job is treated, whereas right now they have essentially no control over it. They can fail it on purpose. They can have it succeed on purpose by writing the script in certain ways, but they don't have explicit control over that. So this will say, whatever you put in your script here, if I exit with a 0, 1, or 2, I want it treated as success. If I exit with 7 or 14, I want it treated as a warning, but continue. And then if it's an 8, then I want it treated as just like self-cancel this job, and then anything else would be a failure. So this is a way that we're adding, more control for people over how their pipeline jobs are evaluated. Extending deploy tokens to multiple projects is not related to your area. DAG is in your area, and so as I mentioned, the DAG is a way to define relationships between different jobs. One thing that it doesn't support today is referring to a job in the same stage, which is sort of an artifact of just the way it was built, coming from stage processing. We said, well, let's simplify things at first by not allowing, within a stage, things to refer to each other. But there wasn't really a strong reason for that. It was just making things incremental, delivering things in small pieces. And so this is the next step to say, we'll allow you to refer to everything in the same state. What really drives this as a customer issue is if people are using a DAG, they're starting to just not use stages at all. They just have one big stage that's like everything in it. And they just want, they don't want to have to make stages for arbitrary reasons in order to like make things connect to each other. So they just want one big stage. They just want to wire everything together and say what the relationships are, and then it will all run. Yeah, or some variation of that. Maybe they've only got like 2 stages, and so they don't want to be forced into making a lot of stages, basically. And this will help them with that. Job tokens is being worked on by Tao, and I think that actually is possibly even moving over to the release team. Variable processing. One of the kinds of requests that we get here is, and this is what this whole paragraph is about, is using expanded variables or expanding variables within the GitLab CI YAML. It's it's a tricky problem because the way YAML processing works is it's not multipass. So anywhere that you want variables to be expanded, you sort of have to explicitly say, and check for expanded variables and expand them, and then continue. So we're working, and again, this is Tao's thing, but she's working on figuring out a way, and she's working with the runner team because they have a part to play in this as well, in order to come up with a general solution that just works for everything. Because right now it's sort of a pain. You'll see there's issues in your backlog that are like, I would like tags to be able to support variable expansion. I would like the rules keyword in this weird place to support variables expansion, and we have to add them all individually, and it's sort of a pain. That's what that is. I'm trucking along here. Are there any questions so far before I continue on?
Not for me.
Okay, great. It's okay. This is more meant to be as a just like a big dump and kind of getting up to speed on what's on the direction page. So that's fine if there's no questions. Top customer issue is the one that we already talked about. This is an interaction thing, but like if we show a URL in the job log, then make it a clickable link so that you don't have to copy and paste it. Pipeline doesn't succeed when users are waiting for other. Yeah, this one actually I think is fixed now, or just got fixed. Or no, this is so there's a few issues that we're fixing that were very hard to fix that were related to DAG processing and when the pipeline is pending, when the pipeline is running, when it's in a blocked state and not, because it was a major change to the way pipeline processing worked. We think we've mostly fixed all of those issues, and that we actually don't need to fix this one anymore because we fixed several underlying issues. That's why this one is in 13.6 as a candidate, because we want to come back to it after we deliver 13.4 and see what issues people are having still. But the important thing to know is that there were several, just kind of like edge cases around processing that were related to the DAG that we've been working through. And they're quite difficult to reason about because there's tons and tons of edge cases. But I think we've actually mostly solved it already. But we may work on some of those issues together. Yeah, this is actually related to variable expansion here. So when $ are expanded or not. Add support for when manuals and triggered pipelines. This one I think we've got in 13.5, yeah. So this is one for your areas related to bridge pipelines. We have this trigger keyword that lets you set up a downstream job, but it will just run always when it gets to that point. We have actually a keyword called when that lets you say manual, and so by adding this, then it will be possible to have that trigger job only happen when you press the play button. And this is another one where, yeah, it's actually not a complicated thing to implement. I think Matthias here is maybe saying it's a one-line change, but it's just another in the way that we're doing things incrementally and adding features one at a time. But yeah, it's just a little thing. It's important. Dog fooding issues, group level pipeline dashboard is not yours, access control is not yours, and public pipeline page is not yours. But yeah, dashboard for running pipelines, past pipelines. This is allowing people to push to the project, but no pipeline is triggered for them. They're not allowed to run a pipeline. And right now there's only one permission for that. And then a public pipeline page MVC is, what's a good example of this? I'm probably just opening it, but like, imagine you have an open source project. A lot of open source projects have a page like this. This is the CNCF one, where it has all their different projects. It has the latest version, a link to the release, a link to the last build and deploy for all of their major projects. We have a lot of open source projects using GitLab. And we don't offer any page like this, so all of them are making their own. It would be cool if you could just go to their GitLab URL / pipeline dashboard or / release dashboard or whatever, and it had something like this, and it was built into GitLab, and people could see more easily if they're using GitLab. Cool. And then we come to top vision items, which I think I've largely covered, but I'll double check. Yeah, the directed acyclic graph, we released that. There's this great feedback issue that Vithika created that you can look at. It's got a ton of different people's viewpoints in there. We have follow-ups in this epic from that, improving the rule syntax, and then, another area that I didn't touch though is, yeah, improving the linter. That's an area where we're doing a ton of work lately. We're improving the ability for it to detect different kinds of problems, including warnings, which it never could before. We're integrating it into the web IDE. They also added, the code editing team did this, but they added syntax highlighting for the Gitlab CA YAML in there. And we've also got an issue to have like a visual builder, and which I think is in here somewhere as well. And the visual builder, visual preview, and just like really improving the web IDE if you've got a GitLab CI YAML open, that is really going to give you all the tools you need to be really confident in what you're writing, and even kind of teach you how to write the GitLab CI YAML, because you can, you know, like once the visual editor is there, you can click on a new job, you'll see the YAML over on the left side, and you can see like, oh, okay, so what it did was it created a new job called my job that has an image, which is a container image, and has a script section. You can sort of see like how it's working and learn to do it. And that's the ultimate goal, is that anybody can go into that editor for a new GitLab CI YAML and very, very quickly get something working. It's not on this page, but in the 13.5 release, we have an issue to track a new internal, or like a KPI, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
That is, oh, sorry, was I frozen there for a second?
Yeah.
No.
You were just talking about this new visualization,
yeah,
ability, and then you said it's not a new pause. Like the authoring experience with like visualization.
Yeah, that what you can kind of learn how to write it by editing it. Did you hear that part? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the metric that we're looking to develop, that will be the first one that we have for the authoring side specifically, is we're going to measure the first time a project tries to run a pipeline, which will be the moment that they create their first GitLab CI YAML. So we'll record the date and time of that. And then it will run. Maybe it will pass. If it passes, we will record the date and time of the pass. So they'll be right next to each other in that case. But if it doesn't pass, then we're going to increment a counter. And it will increment it by 1 every single time. And then we'll record, finally, when they have a green one, the date and time of that. So using that, we will be able to see, you know, for a typical project, or for a project that was created, you know, in the last month, it took 6 tries and 2 days to get to their first green pipeline. It's not a perfect measure, and you can kind of understand, you know, like the more you think about it, you're like, well, there's the, you know, did they go, was it over a weekend? Did they go on vacation? Like maybe they didn't really care, but we'll at least have the data, and we can start to look at it and see what the overall patterns are, and then refine it from there. But that's the kind of metric that we really want to drive with this team, is that time to first green build. And, you know, have it be a good experience, have people be able to get things working pretty quickly. And yeah, so that's the overall direction here. We have another deep dive to talk about all of the items in 13.5, which is already planned. So it's not like a meeting to, you know, like, let's, you know, figure out the plan together. I'll just present to you what my thinking was, what all the items were, what my thinking was as to why it was included, any background on them that may come up. And then we'll schedule after 13. So Friday is the day that all the draft is due for the 13.5 items. They're basically all ready now. So then there's 2 weeks, or just under 2 weeks maybe, of refining that with engineering. So we'll actually be pretty busy for those 2 weeks, talking about, you know, oh, this is really hard, or engineering doesn't think we can do this, or engineering has another great idea how to do this in a different way, and working on all the 13.5 items to get them into the final deliverable state before commitment. But once that commitment is done, so in a couple of weeks, we'll do our first pass of like, okay, well, what do we want to put in 13.6? We'll look at the direction page, we'll look at other epics, we'll look at other sources, and then we'll do all that together. And that's when I will start to hand things off to you and Nadia as well, as to like, okay, you know, here's your options, here's what I'm thinking, but like, what decisions do you want to make, and where do you want to head it? I'll be fully there to support you, but I'll try to make it as much as possible your call, as much as you're comfortable. And then we'll just kind of iterate from there. So that'll be in a couple weeks from now. In the meantime, I would suggest, you know, I gave you a high-level overview of this direction page, but you know, you can go in there and you can open up the issues. You can look at different things. There's an issue also to make to do like the label update, and it will actually move all the items that are in the continuous integration group and continuous integration category that have your topic labels into a new pipeline authoring group, or group pipeline authoring and category pipeline authoring labels. So in a couple of days, it'll be much easier to search for your items and look at your backlog. I do have a query though that you can use in the meantime. It's sort of like a roundabout way to get to achieve the same thing. If you want to start looking at your backlog as well. There's also that topic areas page, which I'm pretty sure you have. So over here, topic areas. So all the pipeline authoring ones are yours. And you can click here on like, if you want to, you can look at these one at a time. You've only got 6 of them. But if you want to look at like, you know, all of the issues for pipeline CI authoring, you can do that. And you can see the 450 here. You can sort them by popularity to find the most interesting ones, just like you would do to acquaint yourself with any backlog. You could look at it as having, you've got 6 smaller backlogs instead of 1 nice backlog to work with. But you do have that today, and you can start working on that today.
Cool. Thanks a lot. It was very helpful, for
Great.
sure. Although I read the direction page several times, but
yeah, but it helps to have a little story behind the story stuff as well.
Yeah.
And cool. I'm here to answer any questions that come up. I know you've got like several things to do on the onboarding issue related to, you know, meeting your peers and doing other things, and so I'll leave you to that. If you need anything, just let me know, and I'm totally here to support. And I'll try to keep you in the loop on anything that I do related to 13.6, although I'm not really doing anything related to 13.6 right now. I'm just trying to finalize all these discussions for 13.5 and try to get everything into the planning breakdown column so that on Friday, well, I guess technically Monday, engineering can come in and they've got everything they need to start waiting and reviewing and discussing the issues.
Do we have a planning issue?
We do have a planning.
Like a draft?
Let's see.
Can you just like mention me there or something?
Yeah, I'll just mention you. That's easy.
Yeah, it's the easiest way.
I just started, Jason.
Did you have anything to add, Physica, or any questions from your side?
Nothing. I just said I posted the planning issue for 13.5 here in the chat.
Great. There's also one for 13.6, which I probably linked to it, or you could find based on the criteria there, but there's nothing really being done in it yet, as I mentioned. There are a couple of things that are in the 13.6 candidate : 13.6 label for your area, and they're things that we were going to do in 13.5 but weren't quite ready. So there's nothing that really needs to be done for them. You can look at them if you like, but when we get to 13.6 planning, we'll reevaluate those and figure out is there anything, are they in a better shape now or not.
Cool.
Cool. Well, I'll upload this video to Unfiltered so that Nadia can watch it also, and anybody else who maybe is interested. Yeah, thanks so much, everybody.
Perfect. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.